How is it safe for nurses to work 12-hour shifts? Why can't they do the regular 8-hour shift? Some places do. Women shrugging light skin tone. Many nurses like the 12s because you end up having 4 days off each week. As far as safety goes, there is some trade-off with the dangers of patient handoff and 12s result in less patient handoffs that 8s would. I feel far less wiped out doing 3 12s than 4 8s. Probably because my 8s are more like 10s. I worked in a warehouse and 12s were easier than 8s because of information lost during shift change. It's 100x more important in a medical field. I hated 8 and out because it took forever to try to get caught up when you come in and catch the next shift up when they come in. If you can do that once a day, 2 by 12, instead of twice, 3 by 8, outcomes are way better. Research has found longer shifts are actually consistently safer than shorter ones because changing nurses risks miscommunications in a patient's chart, and that causes more harm than a 12-hour shift. It's safer actually. It's pretty easy to run the stats. And hospitals do most easily with surgeons. But it applies to doctors and nurses too. Turns out there is no significant difference in outcomes at the end of a 12-hour shift versus beginning of one. The thing that does have a noticeable effect on outcomes are mistakes caused by changing personnel. Hospitals are 24/7 and need continuity of care. They need staff. A hospital has to have shift workers, which can be 8, 10 or 12 hours. There is day and night work required. Much better to have stressed staff than zero staff. Not all nurses work in hospitals and not all nurses do shift work. Moving on to your question. The amount of time off between shifts. Number of shifts per week and hours per week are much more significant than shift length. Primary concern is patient outcome. There is no difference to patient outcome when the shift is less than 13 hours and staff are having breaks of 2,448 hours between shifts, depending on day, night roster. That is what the hospital administrators are first setting up. Above 13 hours and patients start to feel dissatisfied. There are a lot of rostering that helps workers be safe and retain them. Number of consecutive night shifts. Consecutive 12-hour shifts. How many free weekend per month? Length and number of breaks during the shift. Regular schedules versus variable schedules. Worker rotation. Managing eating, sleeping patterns of the staff. Because it's safer than having a shift change, where a patient might have said something to Nurse A. Nurse A doesn't note that anywhere. And then when Nurse B is on their shift, then Nurse B doesn't know what the patient said to Nurse A. I refuse to work 8 hours 5 days a week. You can live your life like that. I prefer the 12-hour shifts. And they're just as safe as 8 hours. I work 24-hour shifts. 10 times a month. If I want overtime, I can do 48 or 72-hour shifts. Sometimes it sucks. Wait until you find out about residents working up to 80 hours per week. More frequent changeover of healthcare providers is associated with higher rates of error and harm to patients. Continuity of care is safest. You get multiple breaks throughout the shift. In theory, I fully acknowledge that isn't always the case. And you're the one that knows where everything is up to, such as infusions and observations. A lot of nurses prefer it as well because they work less days per week and have more free time with their families or hobbies. It's not inherently unsafe if you are managing fatigue with good sleep, good food, taking your breaks, working as a team, etc. Lol, 12-hour shifts are easy. Surgical residents routinely work and do surgery on 2,428-hour shifts. None of us want to work 8 hours for one. We've had 3-day work weeks for years and love it. Less staff needed. More time off. I only work 3 days a week. I can't imagine working 8 hours for 5 days a week. How do you get anything done? The crazy hours working by doctors and residents need to be addressed as the standards that are. Forcing them to work them was written by a man running on pure cocaine. 12-hour shifts are pretty standard and have been for years, regardless of staffing levels or COVID. Wait till OP learns that some fire departments work 48-hour shifts. Delete this. Stop trying to take away my 312s. Personally, as a nurse, I don't think it is. I've long thought that nursing should have mandated breaks and resets like truck drivers. I worked at a hospital with 8-hour shifts, and it was common for people to stay over for doubles, then double back for a shift starting less than 8 hours later. People would also work unbelievably long stretches. I'm talking 10-14 days in a row with doubles thrown in. I did a true double one time and swore I would never do it again. By hour 12, I was having difficulty manipulating vials and syringes. Calculating drip rates and checking dosages was scary. Thankfully, all of my patients were very stable that night, because I really hate to think of how my critical thinking was impacted. Now think about physicians doing their 48-hour call. It's awful and exploitative and dangerous. I'm probably one of the only nurses here that feels this way, but tried 12-hour shifts the first 3 years as a nurse. First on nights, then on days. And it literally almost killed me. I don't know how people can do it. Edit. After a long break off for my health, I got a job at an outpatient clinic. 5/8. And OMG, it's like I have a life again. There are a few of us who prefer this schedule, believe it or not.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.